The Empire had conquered 17 star systems. Their warships numbered in the hundreds of thousands. Their soldiers had never known defeat in 3,000 years of galactic expansion. When their scouts discovered Earth, they laughed at what they found. A small blue planet, primitive technology, no energy shields, no plasma weapons, just nuclear missiles and chemical rockets. The High Council met for exactly 4 minutes before declaring Earth a simple acquisition target. Admiral stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Conquest. He watched Earth grow larger in the viewing screen. Behind him stretched a fleet of 200 warships, each one capable of destroying a continent. His mandibles clicked with amusement as his officers reported their findings. "They have detected our approach," said his sensor officer. "Their communication networks are filled with panic." Waved one of his 4 arms dismissively. "Let them panic. It will make the surrender faster." They had studied humanity for 3 months before launching the invasion. They had intercepted television broadcasts. They had analyzed military capabilities. They had calculated population distribution and resource locations. Everything pointed to an easy victory. The humans had spent centuries fighting each other. They were divided into hundreds of nations. They argued about borders and resources and ideologies. Surely such a fractured species would crumble when faced with a united alien threat. What they did not understand was that humanity's greatest strength came from their apparent weakness. Every war, every conflict, every struggle had taught them something. They had learned to adapt. They had learned to improvise. Most importantly, they had learned that survival often depended on doing the unexpected. The invasion began at precisely 800 hours Earth time. Ships descended through the atmosphere over major cities: New York, London, Tokyo, Beijing, Moscow. The sky turned dark with alien vessels. Panic spread through the streets as people looked up and saw their worst nightmares becoming real. In the United Nations Emergency Chamber, world leaders gathered through video conference. For the first time in human history, every nation agreed on something. There would be no surrender. There would be no negotiation. Humanity would fight together or die together. What happened next would be studied by alien civilizations for millions of years. The expected ground troops to land and secure surrender from terrified governments. Instead, they received humanity's first response. Every nuclear submarine on Earth launched simultaneously, not at the alien ships. That would have been predictable. Instead, they targeted the electromagnetic pulse points their scientists had calculated would disable shield technology. They had never encountered nuclear weapons used this way. Their shields were designed to stop energy weapons and kinetic projectiles. They had never faced radiation-based attacks. Within the first 90 seconds, 60% of the invasion fleet lost shield capability. Admiral watched in disbelief as warning alarms screamed across his bridge. His ships were suddenly vulnerable, but this was just the beginning. Humanity had spent decades preparing for this moment without knowing it. Every military on Earth had developed plans for impossible scenarios. Alien invasion was just another impossible scenario. Within 3 minutes of the first attack, a coordinated global response was activated. Fighter jets from every nation took to the sky. They were not alone. Commercial aircraft had been secretly retrofitted with weapon systems years ago. Cargo planes carried experimental directed energy weapons. Even civilian drones carried explosive payloads. The sky filled with human aircraft moving in perfect coordination. They had superior technology. Their weapons could destroy human vehicles easily, but they had not expected the sheer numbers. For every ship they destroyed, 100 more took its place. Humans flew directly into vessels, sacrificing themselves to create breaches in hull integrity. Pilots ejected at the last second, their planes becoming guided missiles. On the ground, the response was equally devastating. Cities that appeared helpless revealed hidden defenses. Building rooftops opened to reveal missile batteries. Underground bunkers launched drone swarms by the thousands. Even civilians joined the fight. Gun store owners handed out weapons freely. Hunters took positions with rifles. Construction workers drove vehicles toward landing zones. Admiral received reports from across the planet. His invasion force was being decimated, not by superior technology, not by powerful weapons, but by sheer human determination and creativity. "Impossible," he whispered. "They should be running, they should be surrendering." His tactical officer turned with fear in his compound eyes. "Admiral, they are not behaving like conquered species. They are behaving like predators." They had made a critical error. They had assumed that technological superiority guaranteed victory. They had not considered that humanity had evolved on a death world. Earth was filled with predators, diseases, natural disasters, and extreme conditions. Humans had survived everything their planet had thrown at them. An alien invasion was simply another challenge to overcome. In the 6th minute of the invasion, something unprecedented happened. Human hackers broke through communication encryption. They had been working on intercepted signals for months. Now they used that access to spread chaos through the enemy fleet. False orders were transmitted. Ships were directed into each other. Navigation systems were corrupted. The organized armada became a confused mess. They had never experienced cyber warfare. Their species had evolved with a collective consciousness that made deception unnecessary. They had no defenses against lies transmitted through their own systems. Human hackers laughed as they watched alien ships collide and crash. Meanwhile, something was happening in orbit that they had not anticipated. The International Space Station crew had been given special orders weeks ago. They had positioned their station near the command ship. Now they launched their payload. Not a weapon, something far more dangerous. The crew released a container of modified bacteria, Earth organisms that had been genetically enhanced for space survival. The bacteria were harmless to humans, but they were deadly. Their immune systems had never encountered Earth microbes. Within minutes, the command ship was filled with dying aliens. Admiral felt his body temperature rising. His vision blurred. Around him, officers collapsed at their stations. The biological attack was working faster than any weapon could. "Recall the fleet," he gasped. "Retreat, retreat now." But the order came too late. Human forces had already disabled most communication systems. Ships that tried to flee were destroyed by nuclear missiles launched from submarines. Those that made it to orbit found themselves surrounded by the debris of their own destroyed vessels. The entire invasion had lasted 11 minutes. On Earth, people emerged from shelters and hiding places. They looked up at a sky now clear of alien ships. Burning wreckage fell like shooting stars across every continent. The impossible had happened. Humanity had won. In the days that followed, the galactic community received news of the defeat. Shock spread through 100 civilizations. The mighty empire had been broken by a primitive species. Investigators were sent to understand what had happened. What they found terrified them. Humans had not just defended their world. They had captured 3 intact warships. Within weeks, human engineers were reverse engineering the technology. Within months, they were building their own versions. The species that had been dismissed as primitive was now advancing at an impossible rate. The Galactic Council convened an emergency session. Representatives from 60 species debated what to do about humanity. Some wanted to send a larger fleet to destroy them before they grew too powerful. Others argued for peace and diplomacy. A few suggested simply avoiding the Sol system forever. One elderly representative from a species called the stood to speak. His people had encountered humanity centuries ago and had chosen to observe from a distance. His words silenced the chamber. "You have all made the same mistake they made. You see humans as weak because they fight among themselves. You see them as primitive because their technology is young. But I have watched this species for generations. Their conflict makes them strong. Their youth makes them adaptable. They learn from every battle. They improve from every failure. They gave them a lesson in advanced warfare. Do you truly believe they will not use that lesson? The council fell silent. If you attack Earth again, they continued, they will learn from that too. They will adapt. They will overcome. And next time they will not wait for you to come to them. Next time they will come for you. The vote was unanimous. Earth would be left alone. Diplomatic relations would be established. Trade agreements would be offered. Humanity would be welcomed into the galactic community as equals. Some species thought this was a mistake. They believed humanity should be destroyed while they were still relatively weak. But those species stayed quiet. They had seen what humans could do when united against a threat. They did not want to become the next target. On Earth, life slowly returned to normal. The invasion became a turning point in human history. Nations that had been enemies for centuries now worked together. The technology captured from the accelerated development by hundreds of years. Within a decade, humans had their own fleet of starships. The first human vessel to leave the Sol system carried a message broadcast in every known galactic language. It was simple and direct. We come in peace. We seek friendship and trade. But remember what happened to the last species that underestimated us. We defended our home in 11 minutes. Imagine what we could do with years to prepare. No one doubted the message. No one challenged the small human fleet that began exploring the galaxy. The species that had been dismissed as primitive was now one of the most respected in the universe. The empire collapsed within a year. Their conquered worlds rose up against them, inspired by humanity's victory. The species that had ruled through fear learned that fear could be turned against them. Their civilization that had lasted 3,000 years ended in chaos and civil war. Admiral survived the biological attack. He was captured and brought to Earth for trial. When asked why his people had invaded, he gave an answer that would be remembered forever. "We thought you were prey," he said. "We did not understand that you were the greatest predators the galaxy had ever seen." The judges showed him mercy. He was not executed. Instead, he was allowed to live on Earth, to study the species that had defeated him. He spent his remaining years writing about human nature. His books were translated into 100 languages and read by billions across the galaxy. His final work was titled simply The Survivors. It became required reading at military academies throughout known space. The opening paragraph contained a warning that would echo through history. Never attack humanity. Never threaten their children. Never underestimate their determination. For they are not the weak species they appear to be. They are survivors, and survivors will do anything to stay alive. The war that was supposed to end humanity lasted 11 minutes. The consequences of that war shaped the galaxy forever. And somewhere in the vast darkness between stars, other species watched Earth with new respect. The primitive blue planet had proven itself. Humanity had earned its place among the stars. Not through diplomacy, not through discovery, but through the simple truth that had defined their species since they first stood upright on the plains of Africa. Humanity would fight. Humanity would survive. And anyone who threatened them would learn that lesson the hard way. The thought humanity would fall slowly. They were wrong. Humanity did not fall at all. Instead, they rose, and the galaxy would never be the same.